The trap that I just pulled off against this chess master is absolutely gross. So pay attention if you want to be able to do the same to your future opponents. The game started with pawn to e4. I went for c5, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, I played knight to c6, d4, cd, knight takes, and this is the open Sicilian, one of the most common positions in the game of chess. Here we deviate slightly from the main lines and play the move pawn to g6, the idea being that I want to fianchetto my dark squared bishop, putting pressure on the knight and also the long diagonal, especially in future situations if the white king castles queenside. They continue with knight to c3, I play bishop to g7 attacking the knight in the center, bishop to e3 defends, knight to f6, mostly just looking to castle but also adding a bit of pressure to the center and reinforcing this d5 pawn push. They play f3, we castle the king, and then they go queen to d2. Now what's interesting is that this f3 and queen to d2 setup is extremely common and very good if we are playing the Dragon Sicilian, which includes the move pawn to d6. We, however, are not playing the Dragon Sicilian, we are playing the Accelerated Dragon, which means that we've not yet committed this pawn to d6 and can play the move d5 in one fell swoop. This gives black an extra tempo in extremely sharp opposite side castle positions. Therefore, as you can see, the engine already gives black a slight advantage, which is why we execute the move d5 in one go. White tries to liquidate the position a little bit by exchanging knights and then castling. And in this very moment, it looks like we're unable to defend the pawn unless we play a passive move like e6, but this would be a big mistake as white would be able to launch the pawns at us first, and our attack looks extremely slow. Which is why we have this critical move queen to c7, sacrificing our two pawns for white's one pawn. White gets greedy. They decide to capture, taking multiple times to win the pawn in the center. But after bishop to f5, white is already in hot water. We are making a checkmate threat on the c2 pawn, and they decide to try and defend it with queen to c5. We continue to slide over with queen to b7, now making another attack on the b2 pawn, and if white were to continue with queen to b5, we would have an absolutely crazy move that wins us the game. And that move is rook a to c8. Notice I said rook a to c8 and not rook f to c8, because if we play rook f to c8, then white has the crazy counter shot with rook to d8 check, deflecting our rook away from attacking the c2 pawn. And after we take the rook, they just take our queen and are completely winning. But why is rook a to c8 so good, you might ask? I can just take the queen anyway. Well, notice these bishops bearing down on the white king. After rook takes on c2, the king has to move over to b1, now moving into the line of fire of our light squared bishop. Therefore, we have the move rook takes on b2, delivering a double check to the white king. If the king moves into the corner, then rather than taking the queen, we can finish the game in style, with rook to b1, another double check, and this time checkmate. White losing the game up 8 points of material. So white would probably have to play king to c1, but after which we can just take the queen and enter a completely winning position, up a pawn, and ready to bring the last of our pieces into the attack. So of course my opponent sensed the danger after queen to b5 and instead went for queen to a3, opting to defend the b2 pawn. So we keep up the aggression, with rook a to b1 now adding even more pressure, and also inducing the move bishop to d4. You'll see why this is so important in a second. Because after bishop to d4 is played, we have rook f to c8. And notice, there's no more bishop to d3 trying to defend the c2 pawn, because if the bishop goes to d3, then we have bishop takes on d4. The rook has lost defense of the bishop, and if they try to capture our bishop on f5, we have bishop takes on b2, now winning the white queen. So they choose not to go for bishop to d3, and instead play pawn to c3. But this now opens up a huge weakness on this light squared diagonal, and the king can no longer escape to safety, allowing us to repurpose our dark squared bishop onto the h6 to c1 diagonal and deliver a check to the king, which is exactly what we do. There is no good way to block this other than with the rook, as the bishop would just give us another free piece. So they block with the rook, we repurpose our rook to the d file, wanting to play pawn to e5, kick the bishop away, and then win the rook. Notice that we don't get greedy here and cash in our advantage too soon, as that would let white off the hook, and let me tell you, that rook is going nowhere. They try to continue with bishop to a6, attacking our queen. We slide over to c7, and this is where white enters pin city. Look at all of these pins on the white king, completely immobilized. That, my friend, is the power of open files. They tried to hang on with rook to d1, and we did have rook takes on d4 here, which would have been even better than the move that I played and exploited a double pin. Very, very fancy stuff. But instead, I just went for pawn to e5, kicking the bishop back, took the rook with our rook, by the way. Notice the relative value of pieces here. I'm not giving up this beautiful dark squared bishop for anything. So after their rook takes back, we play rook to d8, adding even more pressure to the pinned piece. They try to hang on with bishop to e1, but after queen to d7 and bishop to b5, we have one final in-between move. Bishop takes on d2 and they resign the game. The reason they resigned is because after bishop takes bishop, we have queen takes on d2 checkmate. And if the king moves to the side, we can just take their bishop on b5. If they try to take on d2, then we have queen to f1 mate. The engine suggested move here is queen to e7, trying to attack our rook, such that if we capture the bishop, then they would take our rook with a check. Of course, we're still winning, but there's no mate here. So after queen to e7, I leave it as a challenge to you guys in the comments down below. There is a forced checkmate in 5, and only one winning line to do it. Please leave your suggestions and try to find it. But all in all, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Try this opening line in your own games and let me know the successes that you have. But yeah, that'll be all today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!